In this video, I'll share with you some of the words I usually encounter at work that I deemed easy enough for anyone, absolutely anyone, to remember and use. Kaigo. Let's start with this word, shall we? Mainly because this channel revolves around care, or in Japanese, kaigo. Also, oddly enough, you rarely encounter this word in a Japanese language school, either in the Philippines or here in Japan. Again, I don't know about you, but when I usually try to memorize some Japanese words, I try to decipher and interpret the kanji characters that makes up those words. In the context of caregiving, kai means to concern oneself. Pair it with go, which means to safeguard or protect, and you'll have a rough meaning of to concern oneself into protecting someone. Kaigosha. Speaking of someone, this character may mean someone or person in Japanese. There are a lot of Japanese words that incorporate this character as some sort of a suffix that transforms that word into someone specializing in something. A person specializing in taking care of someone is called a kaigosha. If you're going to work here as an entry-level care worker, you might be called a kaigosha in your facility. Kaigo shisetsu. Speaking of facility, in Japanese, facility is shisetsu. This word is composed of these two characters that mean to perform and to give, and establishment. Again, in the context of caregiving, an establishment or a facility that gives or performs caregiving services is called kaigo shisetsu. Koreisha, nyukyosha, ryosha. So, who do you give your caregiving services to? Easy. Of course, to those people who need caregiving services, and they are usually the elderly, or in Japanese, koreisha. Again, this kanji character means someone or a person, and in this case, a person whose age is high. It is important to remember, however, that those old people inside your kaigo shisetsu are not always called koreisha. This is just textbook terminology. Not everyone uses this in a normal day-to-day basis.
So, what are these old people inside the facility are called?
They're either called a ryosha or a nyukyosha. Ryosha is somewhat an umbrella term that covers anyone that consumes anything. That is why in English, ryosha can be roughly translated to a customer, a patron, a client, a consumer, or the user in an end-user license agreement. Ryosha inside a kaigo shisetsu are basically old-age customers consuming caregiving services. Nyukyosha, on the other hand, is a title bestowed upon those ryosha who resides inside the shisetsu, whatever shisetsu that is. Basically, nyukyosha means a tenant or an occupant. You can be a nyukyosha if you're renting an apartment. Old people residing in a kaigo shisetsu are also called nyukyosha. Basically, those old people residing in a caregiving facility are not called old people. They are called instead a tenant, a user, a customer, or a resident. Kurumaisu. Let's go into the things that are usually used in caregiving. First, and the most common, is the wheelchair, or in Japanese, kurumaisu. Depending on your kaigo shisetsu, 80 to 90% of the nyukyosha are on a kurumaisu. You may be familiar with this character, which commonly means an automobile.
But a wheelchair is not an automobile, so why is there a kanji character of a car in it?
That is because the least known meaning of this kanji character is a wheel or a castor. An undriven wheel that is designed to be attached to the bottom of a larger object to enable that object to be moved. This means a chair and is composed of two characters which mean to lean and a tree. That is, to lean on wood, to sit on a chair made of wood. Oha? This means a child and is not related to a chair or a chair made of child. No, stop that. Just that, with the introduction of Zen Buddhism in Japan, this character was often read as Su, and that tradition was carried over the years. Tsue, tsukue, makura. Although these words are commonly used by a nyukyosha, they are not that closely related to one another. I just chose them to be in the same part of this video because if you try to look at them like this, it would be inevitable to mistake one for another. So let's decipher these pieces of characters. First, tsue, or a cane, or staff, is composed of these kanji characters. This one means durable or strong, while this one means wood. It makes sense if you think about it. A cane is carrying a portion of a person's weight, so it should be a strong piece of wooden stick. One interesting Japanese proverb which includes tsue is this: Koroba no saki no tsue, which means prevention is better than cure, or look before you leap, or forewarned is forearmed. Lalang. Tsukue means a desk or a table made of wood or any material if you want to. In the past, I often confused these two kanji characters. I mean, just look at them. Makura also has the kanji for a tree or wood, but the right radical, well, you need to use either brute memorization or wild imagination to get familiar with this character. I often imagine this character as a person lying down with his neck resting on a pillow. How about you? Can you share the style you use to familiarize yourself with this character? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. Hokoki. Some residents in a facility have a poor gait, that is, they might find themselves having difficulty walking and balancing. As such, using a cane or staff while walking might be more dangerous. In this case, they might use several variations of walking frames, or in Japanese, hokoki, which is an instrument or a tool used to go on a walk. Sliding boardo. Now, the traditional and often considered by the natives as the safest way of moving a resident from the wheelchair to the bed and vice versa is through the use of a caregiver's body. Sometimes though, the resident might be more than twice as heavy as you, and carrying them the traditional Japanese way might be more dangerous to both parties. As such, several tools are used to ease this process, one of which is the sliding boardo, or just sliding board. Beddo. Beddo is just bed. Moving on. As you might notice by now, there are some things used in the Japanese caregiving setting that doesn't have a Japanese word. For example, the bed. Historically, Japanese people don't use beds. They just set their futon on the floor and voila, they sleep on the floor. When foreign things were introduced into the Japanese archipelago, for example, the bed, the Japanese people usually use those things' original names and adapt them to the Japanese way of speaking, where words usually end in vowels. That is why the sliding board is sliding boardo and the bed is beddo. Side rail, over table. Other examples of this are the side rail and over table, which are just the side rails to protect the resident, especially the active ones, from falling off the bed, and the over table, which are used for various things, but mainly to serve as a table where bedridden residents can eat their food on. One interesting fact about side rail is that the natives usually or tend to use saku than the mouthful side rail. Saku just means fence. Sheets, mofu. Sheets or linen are just bed sheets. However, it's important to emphasize this when speaking the word. This is a long vowel mark, often used only in katakana, and is known as chou-on. Mofu is a blanket. It is composed of these kanji characters, which mean hair or fur, and the cloth or linen. Shoutō-dai. In English, it's just a side table or a bedside table. This may mean a floor, but in this context, it means a bed. Remember, in the past, Japanese people often sleep in the floor. The floor in the past is also considered their bed. This, come on dude, it means a head, while this means a rack, stand, or a table. To help you familiarize, this character is just a table placed at the head part of the bed. Allow me to start this one with this. Kaijo. Once you start your job here as a caregiver, it would be inevitable for you to encounter a bunch of Japanese words, and that includes kaijo. So much so that the lines between kaijo and kaigo may get blurred sometimes. Although these words are similar in some ways, they are not the same.
So what's the difference?
To put it simply, kaigo refers to care, long-term care, which includes but not limited to physical care, livelihood, emotional, and social support. On the other hand, kaijo refers to assistance, short-term assistance in a person's daily life, which includes but not limited to eating, the use of the toilet, bathing, dressing, walking, etc. I usually think the difference between these two as something related to time. That is, in Kaigo, the support or care you provide would inevitably take a long time. For example, livelihood and emotional support to a person would obviously need a long time frame. Physical care such as rehabilitation would take months. On the contrary, in Kaijo, the support or care you provide would only take a short amount of time. For example, assisting the elderly to change clothes or take a shit. Taking a shit would only take a few minutes at a time. No one takes a shit for hours. If you do though, dude, visit a doctor. Kaijo is composed of these kanji characters, which means to concern oneself with and help or assist. That is, to concern oneself with assisting or helping someone. Sandai Kaijo. Sandai Kaijo or Sandai Kaigo refers to the three important fundamentals of caregiving: Shokuji Kaijo, Haisetsu Kaijo, and New Yoku Kaijo. These are the big three of care and are always uttered in a caregiving workplace here in Japan. Shokuji Kaijo, which just means concerning yourself with assisting someone in the matters of eating. One of the things you must consider before assisting someone in eating something is their posture, or in Japanese, shisei, which is composed of the characters for the forces or energy used to assume a shape, form, or a figure. Another word related to Shokuji Kaijo is nomikomu, which means to drink or to swallow completely or thoroughly. The onomatopoeic word gokkun also means the same thing, and you can use it as a verb by adding suru. The next word also related to Shokuji Kaijo is Shokuji Keitai, or the form, shape, figure, appearance of your meal. Speaking of meals, allow me to share with you one of the important topics in the National Caregiver Certification Exam, the 5 classifications of Shokuji Keitai. First, we have the Jo Shoku, or just regular diet, and I don't really think I have to define this one. Next is Nanmeshi, or soft rice, which includes staples like soft rice, obviously, and porridge. Basically, it's just Jo Shoku with a lot of water in it to make it softer. This diet is especially made for those people with weak stomachs, and cannot chew properly. Third, we have the Kizami Shoku, which literally means minced, cut, or chopped diet. This diet is for those people who finds it difficult to chew Jo Shoku but doesn't want to eat the wet and sticky Nanmeshi. Then we have the Mikisa Shoku, or Pesto Shoku. In this diet, the food is put into a mixer, thus Mikisa Shoku. This diet is for those people with higher risk of pulmonary aspiration and finds it difficult to chew or swallow food. As such, tormizai is often added into a Miksa Shoku. Lastly is the Sofuto Shoku, which literally looks like Jo Shoku in appearance but is soft enough to be crushed by the tongue alone. No need for teeth or dentures. However, soft shoku is hard enough not to be categorized as nanmeshi. People with this diet are still able to chew and swallow properly, but for some reason or another lacks a set or doesn't have teeth. Japanese tip. Let me just insert these words here. Soshaku, which is just a Japanese technical term for chewing or mastication. That's mastication. Mastication. Clean your ears. And enge, or swallowing. Soshaku is composed of these kanji characters, which both means to bite, while enge is composed of the characters for to drink and below. I know what you're thinking. If this and this means to bite, what does this mean then? This dilemma might be based on the fact that if you're studying Japanese language right now, you might have been introduced to this character for to bite. To simply put it, these are quite old kanji characters and are often used almost always together. Furthermore, while these may mean to bite, this means to bite, to chew, and to gnaw, just to mention a few. So yeah, that's basically their difference as far as I know, that is. The same principle applies to the nomu part of enge. While this means to swallow, the most commonly used this means to swallow, to drink, to take medicine, and gulp. Kindly remember these words because they sometimes pop up here and there in the National Caregiver Certification Exam here in Japan. Haisetsu Kaijo. Haisetsu just means excretion, the process of eliminating or expelling waste matter. When you work here in Nikaigo Shisetsu, the elderly or the residents in your nursing home are often divided into two categories based on their ability to move on their own. The ambulatory is often assisted towards the toilet, or in Japanese, toire yudo. This is because even if they can still walk on their own, perhaps due to dementia, they tend to forget where the toilet is. Or worse, they might mistake another person's room as a toilet and do their business there. For bedridden or paralyzed elderly, assisting them to the toilet is utterly impossible. Obviously. In this case, you, the caregiver, shall perform paddo kokan, which is just the change or replacement of pads or adult diapers. New yoku kaijo. New yoku literally means entering or going inside the bath. And one of the most commonly encountered words concerning new yoku kaijo is kigae, or in English, change of clothing. Sometimes kigae is also a kaijo all on its own, often called koi kaijo, with ko meaning renew and i meaning garment or clothing. Another commonly encountered words concerning changing of clothes is koromogae, which basically means garment and exchange. This is often used to refer to the seasonal change of clothing. Yes, the residents or the elderly in your workplace will change their clothes according to the season. After all, no one wants to wear a jacket during humid, hot summer months. An important thing to watch out for when assisting an elderly in the bath is the presence or absence of naishuketsu, or internal bleeding, which is composed of these characters that literally means blood getting out inside. If that makes sense to you. Or just bleeding inside. Now, when you talk about assisting the elderly, Japanese elderly, in the bath, it is of utmost importance to remember that these people, the natives, old natives, often take a hot bath, regardless if it's summer or otherwise. Needless to say, old people are very prone to burns during their hot bath. Hot bath. Hot bath. To prevent that and to protect you, the caregiver, you must first check the temperature of the water by pouring it first in your anterior forearm. Here. Or in Japanese, Zenwanbu. The rationale behind it, as I was told during my times in the Japanese caregiving college, is that this region is far more sensitive to heat than here. Ijo Kaijo. The next kaijo we will discuss in this video that is not included in the Sandai kaijo is Ijo Kaijo, or in English, roughly, transfer assistance. It refers to the assistance with transferring a physically challenged elderly or an individual from one place to another. For example, before breakfast, you as the caregiver would have to wake the residents up and transfer those who aren't able to do it on their own from their bed to the wheelchair. During baths, bedridden residents are often carried by a couple of caregivers from the bed to a stretcher. That mainly depends on the size of the elderly. If their weight is thrice or more than your own, then a couple of caregivers wouldn't be enough. If you're the only one who will be assisting an elderly in transferring from one place to another, for example from the bed to a wheelchair, then that is called Hitori Kaijo. If you do a kaijo, whatever kaijo that is, with a fellow care worker, then that is called Futari Kaijo. There might be words for 3 or more caregivers doing the same kaijo cooperatively, but as of today, I've never heard of it. If you've heard it though, please let us know or share your knowledge in the comments down below. I'm open to learning new things. Obviously, Ijo Kaijo is one of the most commonly repeated activities in your workplace as a caregiver. Unless, of course, the company generously provides a pneumatic machine, or all the residents, absolutely all of them, are ambulatory. And these are the words you will never learn in a Japanese language school, either in the Philippines or here in Japan. Welcome back to NikkoVenture. When you work here in Japan as a care worker, there is a huge chance that you will experience moshiokuri, which means to write or to hand over. That is why during moshiokuri, the outgoing staff shall have to write a note of all the pertinent information and details of the previous shift, which includes but is not limited to the residents' vital signs, accidents, and the like. These invaluable pieces of information shall then be handed over by the outgoing staff to the incoming staff. Individually though, moshiyukuri is composed of these two kanji characters, which mean to say and to send. It's like saying something important before sending someone off to work. For those of you who have medical or nursing background, moshiyukuri can be roughly translated to endorsement. That is why moshiyukuri here in Japan is often done before a work shift. Now, if you're the morning shift care worker, one of the most important things you must do at the beginning of your shift is to wake the residents up. I often encounter two words at work when talking about waking the residents up. And these are kisho and risho. These two have roughly the same meaning and share the same kanji character for bed and floor. Despite this, they are not identical.
So what's the difference?
Kisho specifically means rising or getting up from one's bed, but you're still in bed. You just transitioned from the supine position to the sitting position. If you transition from the sitting position to the standing position, effectively separating yourself from the bed, that's risho or getting out of bed. Most, if not all residents would immediately go and wash their hands and faces after getting out of the bed, or in Japanese, sengan, which literally means to wash and face. I often hear my fellow Japanese co-workers talking about two words relating to sengan: senmenjo and senmendai. Honestly, I was fairly confused at first, but when I did my research, this is what I found out. Senmenjo is just a place with face and hand washing facilities. These facilities with equipment that includes a faucet, a mirror, and a wash bowl is a senmendai. Senmenjo is a place where you can wash your face. A senmendai is a facility or an equipment, a table where you can wash your face, and it is located in a senmenjo. I really do hope that made sense to you. Your resident hadn't eaten for a long time throughout the night, so it's time for the first meal of the day, breakfast, or in Japanese, choshoku, which is often followed by lunch or chushoku, and dinner or yushoku. In your Japanese language school, you may refer to these as these. No worries, they're virtually the same thing. Depending on your facility, some residents may be allowed to go outside or visit a park. Of course, you, the caregiver, must accompany them. In Japanese, that is called gaishutsu. Needless to say, you must always be on guard because during gaishutsu, accidents can occur. Or in Japanese, jiko. In that case, the caregiver, you, the care worker who accompanied that resident outside or in the park, must write a jiko hokokusho. Speaking of jiko, allow me to share with you the top 3 jiko among the caregiving facilities here in Japan. Tento, tenraku, goen. These words are often used when writing a jiko hokokusho. Let's start with goen, which means breathing in of a foreign body, mis-swallowing or pulmonary aspiration. Goen is composed of these two kanji characters which mean to swallow and mistake. Tento and tenraku are somewhat similar. I mean, they share the same kanji character which mean to revolve or turn around. But again, they are not the same. To show you the difference between these two in the easiest way possible, watch this. This means drop, fall, or collapse, while this also means drop, fall, and come down. Closely following the top 3 jiko is uchitsuke, to strike hard. In cases where uchitsuke is present, you may encounter this word, shintai kosoku, physical restraints, with these kanji characters which means a person's body is seized and controlled. Basically, shintai kosoku is done to prevent a violent resident from hurting other residents, himself, and the staff, which includes you, the caregiver. Under Japanese law, it is illegal to restrain a resident. Don't do it. Just don't. Resist the urge. Sometimes though, it is an emergency and physically restraining the resident cannot be helped, or in Japanese, kinkyu yamu enai. There are only three instances where a situation can be considered an emergency and restraining the resident is unavoidable. First is the seppakusei, where restraining a resident is allowed if there is an extremely high possibility that the life or body of the resident or other residents is in danger. Next is the hidaitai-sei, where restraining a resident is permitted if other than physical restraints, there is no alternative nursing care method available at that moment. Lastly is the ichiji-sei, where restraining a resident is just temporary. Kindly remember these words because these words may come popping up in the National Caregivers Certification exam here in Japan. Actually, add these as well for good measure. Okay? Okay. The following words we'll discuss from here on out are just random bits of words. I often use these words at work either in a conversation or in a recording, so take notes. Nanko tofu, jokuso no shochi. Nanko tofu just means smearing or coating a wound with a soft ointment or salve. This, well, it's just a cloth. Just imagine applying the ointment with a piece of cloth and there you go. Nanko tofu. You often perform nanko tofu in the buttocks area of a resident, since it's one of the regions where a jokuso frequently occurs, or in English, bed sore. It is composed of these kanji characters that mean bed and wound. Sometimes, though, the jokuso is so severe that a simple application of an ointment or a salve isn't enough. In this case, the care worker, you, will have to perform wound dressing. Just a side note, if you happen to do a wound dressing in the buttocks area of a resident, I advise you to do it as fast as you possibly can. Because sometimes the resident may involuntarily discharge fecal material near your face. What the fuck? As I said, involuntarily, the resident has little to no control over this, so don't blame them. Just do it a little bit more faster. In the caregiving and medical field, dressing a wound can be roughly called shochi. This is somewhat an umbrella term that basically means medical treatment. Tengan is just pouring or dropping medicines in the eyes. Eye drops. Shippu no haritsuke. Again, we have the cloth or linen that is wet or damp and is to be affixed or to be stuck in the painful area of a resident's body. A good example of a shippu is this. You know, let me just edit a picture here. They come in various brands and sizes, and they will be your friend throughout your tenure here as a care worker. Sewa. In the previous videos, we've discussed kaigo and kaijo, which, despite the nuances here and there, roughly share the same meaning, which is care and assistance. Now, sewa is their brother from another mother. Yes, sewa basically means care, assistance, or looking after someone. I know, Japanese can be so much complicated sometimes. The main difference between these three, at least for me that is that while kaigo and kaijo are predominantly used at work, sewa is more of an aisatsu or a salutation or roughly a greeting. For example, Mijikai shita ga osewa ni narimashita. And of course, for everyone there reading Minna no Nihongo, taihen osewa ni narimashita and iroiro osewa ni narimashita. In other words, you will rarely hear kaigo and kaijo during a normal or ordinary conversation with the natives. However, you will hear sewa, or more correctly, osewa, in some form or another almost everywhere.
6. It's reading right, man, look. 5 meters, man. 4.
But wait, there's more. The two most common forms of sewa I usually encounter at work are osewa ni narimasu and osewa o kakimasu.
So what's the difference?
Osewa ni narimasu is often used to acknowledge that you have received favor, care, or help from someone. Taihen osewa ni narimashita and iroiro osewa ni narimashita. It is important to remember, however, that even though osewa ni narimasu shares the same meaning roughly with arigato, osewa ni narimasu packs more politeness, respect, gratitude, and gratefulness than arigato, even if you add gozaimasu after it. On the other hand, osewa o kakimasu is used as a form of sorry or an apology to a person when you feel that you've caused trouble to that person by making that person take care of you. I hope that made sense. I often hear osewa o kakimasu from my residents when I'm doing my job. They often say, osewa o kakite gomen ne. They feel that they bothered me by asking me to do something for them that they can't do by themselves. Every time they say that though, I'm like, you don't have to apologize since I'm just doing my job. But
apology accepted, Captain Nida.
Initially, the Japanese people adopted the term novel coronavirus, calling it Shingata coronavirus kansensho.
新型コロナウイルスが日本国内で初めて確認されました。
And they never changed it. Shingata roughly means a new type, or in this case, a new strain of infection. Coronavirus is coronavirus written in katakana. Kansensho literally means infection, where your feeling is stained by an illness. Basically, you're feeling unwell. You are infected. An infected individual, basically the carrier of a virus, is called in Japanese kansensha. Once the infectious disease you're carrying spreads to another person or a group of people, that infection would become a contagion, or in Japanese, densen, where the stain is already being transmitted to other people. Once that contagion, though, becomes widespread, infecting large numbers of people in a community, it's already categorized as an epidemic, or in Japanese, ryuko. This word can also be used to describe a trend in fashion or in something popular. In the context of diseases and infection, you can say that the infection is already having a journey across people or flowing across the community. However, it is important to take note that the natives, most natives here in this country, usually use this character, use this word in its other verb form. And that verb form is hayaru, which shares virtually the same meaning with this. It's just that I often hear the natives use hayaru rather than ryuko when referring to COVID-19 or other infectious diseases for that matter. Hidoi byoki ga hayatteru. Once the said disease becomes widespread over a whole country or the world, it is already categorized as a pandemic, or in Japanese, pandemic, or more rarely, hanpatsu. Another word I often encounter is koronatsukare, or that feeling of being tired of dealing with the pandemic, or pandemic fatigue. This koronatsukare is often felt by those who were COVID-positive individuals who were forced to self-quarantine, staying in the same place for an extended amount of time while infected with a disease that can be life-threatening. Or to those healthcare workers dealing with COVID-positive patients, risking being infected with the virus themselves. COVID-19 positive residents in a nursing home or in a caregiving facility are often forced to go under strict quarantine, or in Japanese, kakori. Furthermore, these residents are often bedridden elderly. As such, there's a huge risk or high risk of developing jokuso, but not only jokuso, but of fushu as well. Fushu, or in English, edema, is swelling caused by too much fluid in a particular part of the body. There are numerous complications of having edema as an old person depending on various factors, but I don't want to bore you with that, so I'm not gonna talk about it. Just kindly take note that fushu is also read as mukumi. They have the same meaning, it's just that fushu is used in the medical field often as a senmon yogo, whereas mukumi is an ordinary word used daily by ordinary people. As such, if you're doing keroku at work, it would be better to type in fushu rather than mukumi. Bedridden residents cannot go to the bathroom, obviously. However, perhaps due to dementia, some of these residents literally reach down into their diapers after taking number 2, and they literally play with their own shit using their bare hands. This condition is called roben, where a demented person, a person with dementia, doesn't only play with their shit, but also takes that shit out and rubs it against the clothes, bedding, and surrounding walls. I experienced this more than once. Well, I did not do Robin. I saw a resident doing Robin at work more than once. And I can tell you, it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, the color and the smell, it's just positioning, or in English, positioning, is without a doubt absolutely important, especially to those bedridden residents who cannot move their bodies on their own. This is done for various reasons. The most common one is for the prevention of bed sores. Some of the most common positioning I often encountered at work are Zai, the sitting position, Sokogai, lying down on one side, may it be the right or the left side, it doesn't really matter. Gyogai, the supine position or lying on one's back with face upward. Fukugai, the prone position or lying on one's belly with face down. This can also be written as the same meaning, just written in a different kanji character. I know we're talking about the positioning of a bedridden resident, but please allow me to include this type of positioning. Ritsui, the standing, erect, or upright position. Some ambulatory residents, despite being under strict quarantine, often loiter or roam the halls. In Japanese, loitering is haikai, which means wander and wander. Yes. The elderly often do this either because they're demented or just stubborn old bones. In this case, we just have to be firmer and enforce the needed measures to contain the infection and prevent the spread of that infection. Due to the fact that the chance of the virus spreading is really high, some of those, or not some, all of the residents that are COVID-19 positives are restricted from going out and using some of the facilities of the nursing home, and that includes the use of ofuro, or the bath. In such cases, as a substitute for a bath, the care workers often perform bed bath or sponge bath, or in Japanese, seishiki. It's a procedure where the whole body of the elderly are cleansed with the use of hot water, soap, shampoo, and a towel or a sponge in some cases. Doing seishiki when traditional bath is unavailable is extremely important, since the dry and unclean areas of an elderly's body is prone to bacterial and fungal infections. It is often emphasized to us as care workers to focus on cleaning the genital area of the elderly, or in Japanese, inbu senjo. So that's it. Those are some of the words concerning COVID-19 that I can think of for now. If you know more of these kinds of Japanese words concerning COVID-19, please feel free to share it with us in the comments down below. Also, if you like this video or if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and of course, share this video with an interested friend. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much for your time watching this video. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.